last week and spent some time celebrating God. Today, we are going to continue talking about Psalms. But this time, we're going to talk about something not so fun.
In the Psalms, we have books that praise, celebrate God, and like we talked about last week, and also books of lament.
What's lament?
Poems of lament express pain, confusion, and anger about how horrible the world is and how horrible the things are happening to the poet. And so these poems draw attention to what's wrong in the world, and they ask God to do something about it. There's a lot of these in the book, which tells us something important, that lament is an appropriate response to the evil that we see in our world.
These Psalms were not complaints. They just showed normal reactions to bad things that happened to the writers. The lament Psalms were often written after the fact, and the author is looking back on what happened. You see, the authors often move from grief or hurt to joy. A joy that is found in God, and as we know now, in Jesus saving us. This is not just found in the Psalms, though. You find these stories all over the Bible. Let's first go over our memory verse and then learn about Hannah, who prayed for a long time for a very special gift.
Slapstick Theater. Hannah and God. This is Hannah.
Hi.
Hannah was married to a man named Elkanah.
Hey!
But they were not able to have any children. This made Hannah sad.
Oh.
It's okay. Come on.
Every year, Hannah and Elkanah would go to the house of the Lord at Shiloh to pray to God and offer sacrifices. Hannah would cry out and pray to the Lord. She told God that if he gave her a son, she would give him back to him and that her son would serve God all the days of his life. Hannah was so upset that one of the priests, Eli, thought there was something off about her. But Hannah told him that she had been praying because she had a broken heart. Eli told her, "May the God of Israel grant the request you've made."
Thank you.
And then Hannah was no longer sad. In due time, Hannah became pregnant and gave birth to a son.
Yeah!
She named him Samuel, for she said, "I asked the Lord for him." Hannah did as she said she would, and once Samuel was a little older, she took him to the temple. Hannah prayed and gave thanks to God, and Samuel grew up in the temple serving the Lord.
Have you ever really prayed hard for something like Hannah? Maybe it was for someone you know who was really sick, or to meet a new friend at school, or to win something. And you prayed for it again and again and again. Didn't it seem like your prayer was just not being heard or vanishing into thin air? Well, you're not the only one. King David prayed a prayer just like that in Psalms 13.
Oh Lord, how long will you forget me? Forever? How long will you look the other way? Just like Hannah was sad about not having a child, David was sad about something when he prayed this prayer. Maybe it was because another king was out to get him. Maybe it was because people wanted someone else to be their leader.
Or maybe because he lost his favorite slingshot. But whatever the reason, David felt like God had forgotten all about him. He probably thought his prayers were vanishing into thin air.
Sometimes God is quiet when we need him most. That's what we learn when we read Psalm 13. God didn't always answer David's prayers right away, and he will always answer your prayers right away. Do you know why?
Sometimes prayer involves people. God does not force people to follow his will, but he works with them patiently. This takes time. Also, sometimes God is making us stronger while we continue to pray. God's plan for us is help us grow more faith in him and to help us become closer to him.
When we read Psalms 13, you'll learn something else. Just because God is quiet does not mean he's not there. That's what King David learned, and that's what Hannah learned. They both realized that God was always watching and always cared. God wasn't ignoring David or Hannah. He was teaching them how to have patience and how to trust him.
How can we know he cares? God proved his love by sending Jesus. Jesus is God's proof that he's listening. Even if our prayers don't feel like they're getting anywhere, because Jesus died for us, we can trust that everything is going to be okay.
But I trust in your unfailing love. I have trust because you have rescued me. Next time you feel your prayers are vanishing into air and getting lost, try a different prayer. Thank God for saving me. That's what King David did.
Books of the Bible, ready, go! Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua, Judges, I want to tell you the truth about the book of Ruth. On to 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings, 1st and 2nd Chronicles, and all those things lead to Ezra, Nehemiah, Esther, and Job. I want to go to heaven in a righteous robe, singing Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Solomon's song, and the prophets are these: Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Jay's lament. Ezekiel and Daniel to the lions went. Hosea, Joel, and Amos's tale. Obadiah, Jonah in the belly of the whale. Micah, Nahum, and Habakkuk's cry. Zephaniah, Haggai, then Zechariah. The last Old Testament books are real, but Malachi points to a brand new deal. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, the story of Jesus, and then move on to Acts and the letters of Paul. Romans, 1st and 2nd Corinthians, all Galatians, Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians, and move on to 1st and 2nd Thessalonians. 1st Timothy, 2nd Timothy, Titus, Philemon, Hebrews, and James. 2 books from Peter and John's, all 3. Jude, the dude, and Revelation. You'll see that these are written that you might believe that Jesus is the Christ and his grace receive.
Buck, I got an email for you. It's on my phone.
Marcy, we're right in the middle of a show.
I know, but it might be important. You better read it.
I can't read this. The words are way too small. Could you print it out and hand it to me? You know, like a letter?
What's a letter?
A letter. You know, the way people used to send messages to each other. They'd write things out on paper.
What's paper?
Can anyone help me out here? We're having a generational issue.
Oh, this is a perfect opportunity to talk about the next section of the Bible.
Is it about cell phones?
No, it's about letters. Before we could send emails or text each other on our cell phones, people wrote letters. You'd write your message on a piece of paper, and then someone would carry that letter to the person you wanted to talk to. When ancient kings like Cyrus wanted something recorded, scribes carved it onto stone or clay tablets. These were really heavy, though, and hard to carry around, so folks looked for something lighter. The Egyptians discovered you could take the stems of the papyrus plant, cut them into strips, and paste them together into sheets of something not quite as nice as paper, but a lot lighter than carrying around a rock. This was called papyrus. By the time of Jesus and his disciples, it was easy to send messages far away because of the great Roman roads and papyrus.
What does this have to do with the next section of the Bible?
Yeah. When do they get cell phones?
Cell phones don't come around for about 2,000 years. Papyrus was the cell phone of the ancient world. And it's important because the next section of the Bible is made up of letters that were written and passed around on papyrus. The next 13 books in the New Testament are the Pauline epistles.
Pauline? Who's she?
I don't think it's a girl's name.
Pauline is a girl's name, but that's not the way we're using it. The word Pauline means of Paul.
And epistle?
Epistle is a Greek word that means letter.
So the Pauline epistles are the letters of Paul.
Right, gotcha. So who wrote them?
Paul.
The New Testament has 21 letters in it. We call these the epistles. The first 13 are the ones written by Paul. They are, in order, Romans, 1st and 2nd Corinthians, Galatians, Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians, 1st and 2nd Thessalonians, 1st and 2nd Timothy, Titus, and Philemon.
Is that the order they were written?
Of course not. That would make too much sense.
To really explain these letters, we need something more advanced than a flannel graph.
Fear not, I am on the job.
Oh, hi, Dr. Schniffelhausen. I guess you'll be taking this one?
Who else can apply the powers of science to dramatic biblical visualization? Behold, the epistoloputer!
I thought that was the prophet-o-pewter.
That was last year's model. Technology changes quickly. I've moved on.
What'd you do with the old one?
Exchanged it at Radio Shack for a $50 gift card.
Ooh, what are you gonna do with a gift card?
I was thinking about one of those little remote control helicopters.
I love those!
Guys, can we get back to the show?
Oh, sorry. Can I play with it?
Sure thing. The letters of Paul. The way we find them in the Bible: Romans, 1st and 2nd Corinthians, Galatians, Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians, 1st and 2nd Thessalonians, 1st and 2nd Timothy, Titus, and Philemon, isn't in order when they were written. They're arranged instead from longest to shortest, more or less.
Sort of like the prophets in the Old Testament, with the big major prophets and then the little minor prophets after that.
It's a lot like that. We aren't sure why the books of the prophets and Paul's letters got put together this way, but that's the way it is.
Right, so Paul's longest letter, Romans, comes first. And at the end, we find Philemon, a letter so short Paul could have written it on the back of an envelope.
What's an envelope?
I'll explain it to you later.
Paul wrote these 13 letters over about 15 years, from around 50 AD until around 65 AD.
Yeah, we can visualize. 1st and 2nd Thessalonians and Galatians were written first, around 50 AD. 1st Corinthians was written 4 or 5 years later, and 2nd Corinthians about a year after that. The big one, Romans, came around 57 AD, followed by Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians, and Philemon, all around 62 AD.
He sure wrote a lot of letters that year.
That's because he was in prison. That gives you a lot of time to write.
Paul was in prison? Did he rob a bank?
No. Remember in the book of Acts, we learned about Paul's 3 missionary trips and how when he got back to Jerusalem, he was arrested for preaching about Jesus. He was held in prison by Governor Felix, then Governor Festus, then was taken to Rome because he appealed to Caesar.
Oh, I remember that. I appeal to Caesar. That's fun.
And it was while he was waiting in Rome to see Caesar that we believe he wrote these 4 letters.
Yeah, 62 AD, sitting in prison in Rome. The last 3 letters, 1st and 2nd Timothy and Titus, were written in 64 or 65 AD. So this is how the Bible would look if the letters were in chronological order, the order in which they were written.
Who did he write these letters to? His mum and dad? His first grade teacher? The President of the United States?
I'm pretty sure we can rule that last one out.
The name of the letter tells us who it was written to.
Everywhere Paul went on his 3 big trips, people started following Jesus. All the Jesus followers in a city would meet together and form what we call a church, a word that means a group that assembles together. But Paul couldn't stay and keep teaching every one of these groups, so when they had questions about what Jesus taught or about how they should live as his followers, Paul would write them letters.
Couldn't they just read the Bible? You know, the New Testament part?
The New Testament hadn't been written yet.
That's right. Mark may have begun working on his gospel as Paul was starting to write his letters, but no one would have seen it yet. Paul's letters were the first writings to really explain what it meant to be a Christian, to belong to Christ.
Hey, Mindfulness Maya here.
And Carlton.
Today, we wanted to talk to you all about another simple but very important way to practice mindfulness. It's called self-talk.
Now, there are different kinds of self-talk. It can be positive and negative. What we want to look at and try to practice is positive self-talk.
Positive self-talk can look and sound like this. Maybe you're really stressed about homework or responsibilities. Instead of worrying about how much you have to do, try saying, I know I have a lot to do, but I can handle it. I can do this. This can motivate you and maybe even make the load feel lighter.
Another way to practice positive self-talk can sound like this. Maybe you're feeling sad because you don't have things that others might have. Well, try to tell yourself, I wish I had this, but that's okay. I don't need this thing to feel complete.
Positive self-talk can be as simple as telling yourself that you're awesome or smart, which is great. In this video, though, we're going to teach you how to be a little more specific.
Now, we only gave you 2 examples, but there are many others. If you want to talk to yourself more positively but you don't know where to start, try using Maya and I's luck strategy.
L stands for look. Look around and think about what's going on. Is there a specific problem that's making you need to give yourself positive self-talk? Take a minute to consider those things first.
U stands for understand. Understand what you've done so far to solve your problem, or just stay positive, and what you need to do moving forward.
C stands for compliment. Compliment yourself on what you're doing well. You already know what you need to do better, so be sure to praise yourself for your effort and what you're already doing right.
K stands for keep it up. Once you've practiced positive self-talk once, don't stop there. Keep going and make it something that you do every day.
Here's one more example, just to show you how it all works. I have a lot of schoolwork to do, but I just don't feel like doing it. Although I have done work like this before, so I already know what to do, really. I work really hard, and even though I don't feel like it now, I know I can do it, and I can do it well. I'll be sure to say this to myself anytime I feel unmotivated to do my work in the future.
Positive self-talk is a good way to help you practice mindfulness and feel better about yourself in the process.
Try to use these examples and our luck method whenever you can.
Alright, that's all for today, but we'd really appreciate it if you breathe with us before you go.
Put one hand on your heart and the other on your belly. Close your eyes or leave them open if you like, and get ready to breathe now.
Breathe in and breathe out.
Breathe in and breathe out.
Last one. Breathe in and breathe out. Thank you everyone for breathing with us.
We'll see you all again next week. But for now, be sure to stay calm and stay mindful.
I will confess some days I feel forgotten. Seems like you're hiding your face from me. I will admit that I wrestle with my thoughts, struggle with all of the sorrow deep. How long will you leave me here without answers, crushed by the words of my enemies? But I will trust your unfailing love. I will rest knowing you're enough. I will give praise, for through all my days you have been good to me.
Our children's Sabbath school has virtual classes every week, live on Zoom every Sabbath morning from 9:45 to 10:30 a.m. The classes hosted are Cradle Roll, Kindergarten, Primary, and now Junior classes, and there are virtual breakout rooms for each one. We encourage children in the same household but different classes to sign on to Zoom separately to allow each child to attend their own virtual class. Can't wait to see you there!
That's all, kids. Just remember, you may have been hurt or angry, and you may not always feel like God hears your prayers. But remember that God is there, and He loves you no matter what. And because of that, you can always trust God.
Give thanks, God is good. All that He made is good. Raise up your voice and sing, 'cause